What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. This is Courtside TV. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, I wanted to talk about the Chicago Bulls, who are floundering right now after making the Vucevic move. They have not looked great since the trade deadline, and many people expected that they would cement themselves as a playoff team, myself included. I figured that they would, start to go on a run and start to win some games and potentially make the playoffs this season, or at least make the play-in tournament, obviously. But that has not happened so far. Technically, they are still in the mix for that play-in spot, but they're quickly losing ground, and it's looking like they might end up falling out of it, which would be very unfortunate. So let's just talk about the Bulls and kind of what they've gone through this year. So currently Chicago is 22-32, which puts them at the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference, so that's good enough for a play-in spot. They are currently 4 games back of the Indiana Pacers for the 9 seed, so pretty unlikely that they get up there in all honesty. I mean, it's still obviously possible. They could go on a run and another team above them could start to slip, but it's looking increasingly more unlikely that they're going to be able to move up any higher than 10th. So right now they're 10th, and then they're 1 game ahead of both the Raptors and the Wizards, who are, virtually tied. I mean, they've played different amounts of games, but they have the same record in terms of standing there. So the Raptors and the Wizards are both 1 game back of the Bulls here for that 10th spot. And while the Raptors arguably are tanking for the rest of the season, I'm not really sure. I can't really decide what the Raptors are really trying to do, because they're kind of in between, where they're a little too bad to really do anything in the playoffs, but they're too good to really have a chance at a top pick. But maybe they just want to kind of shut it down and try to sell out for the rest of the season. So potentially the Raptors might drop out of there and not really try to even make the play-in game. But I think the Wizards are trying to win games. They have, obviously Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, 2 veterans there who are trying to win at this stage of their career. And I think they're trying to make a last-ditch effort for Bradley Beal to stick around, because, he could potentially make a trade request pretty soon. So that's something that to watch out for. Right now the Bulls are in the 10th spot almost kind of by default, but they have 2 teams knocking at the door for that spot, and if they continue to slump here, they're going to be in real trouble. And to top it all off, Zach LaVine will be entering health and safety protocols. We got a report from Woj yesterday saying that he is entering those protocols, and it's expected that he will miss several games. It's obviously right now unclear on just how long he will be out, but maybe he has tested positive, or he might be in close contact with somebody who has, and that's going to force him out for probably at least a week, if not more. So that is obviously not good. He's their best player. He's been having an awesome season for them so far. He's really the only guy on the team that can put the ball in the basket consistently. Him and I guess Vucevic as well. So LaVine is a key part of what they do, and he is a 25 point per game scorer, however much he's hitting this year, and can get hot at any moment and wins a lot of games for them, and was well deserving of his first All-Star nod. So obviously if he's out, that's a big blow. It's going to become more of a Vucevic thing, where he gets to run the show, do more of what he did in Orlando, being that first offensive option, being the playmaking hub in the post, and obviously gobbling up rebounds and passing out for assists, and doing some scoring himself. If you remember this year when he was playing with the Magic and they were decimated by injuries, he was averaging like 24 points per game. I know for a fact that was true at least at the time of the All-Star game. When I was like looking at who made the All-Star team and stuff, he was like averaging 24, and it's like, okay, well, he has to make it if he's averaging 24. And so he's obviously very capable of doing that when he has his own team. So we're gonna see the Vucevic show for a couple of weeks. Obviously it's not going to be impossible for them to win games, but it's going to be tougher obviously without their best player. But I mean, seriously, look at their recent schedule. They have had some really bad losses. I mean, particularly in the last 4 games. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now. They've lost to the Hawks, Timberwolves, Grizzlies, and Magic. Hawks is at least excusable. They've been playing well lately. Grizzlies is at least excusable. They're, a pretty solid team in the Western Conference. But that Timberwolves lost, I know that it was on the road. But I mean, you don't just lose to the Timberwolves, man. If you're trying to make the playoffs, don't lose to the Timberwolves. That's rule number 1. And then losing to the Magic is probably even worse, considering that I think they're a worse team than Minnesota at this point. I know the record does not say that, but the Magic, I've talked about them, how they basically blew it up and they're tanking the rest of the year. And losing to Vucevic's old team is it's just not a good look. So they lose to the Magic. And it's just bad, man. It's just bad times, because they haven't been banged up. Obviously, like I just said, LaVine's going to be out for a little while. But they've been healthy, up to this point since the trade deadline happened. They've had pretty much all their guys available. So Some of these losses are just really inexcusable at this point. I get that it's you need a little bit of time to get everybody together and get everybody acclimated when you make a big move like that at the trade deadline, but you still have way more talent than some of these teams that you're losing to. And Billy Donovan's not a bad coach. At least I don't think he's a bad coach. He had a really good season last year coaching the Thunder. So I don't really know what the excuse is for this Bulls team, but they're running out of them. So what does this mean for them in the long term? Well, obviously I don't think this means they need to take any drastic actions. They just made the trade. You can point to that and say, well, they're still figuring things out. They're still kind of working out the kinks. It's a brand new pairing. It's going to take them a while. And I agree with that on the surface level, right? I think that makes sense, and we need to give this LaVine Vucevic pairing time to gel and time to work out. So I don't think they need to panic and make any huge trades this offseason. And trade away LaVine or trade Vucevic again or whatever. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think anybody thinks they're going to do that. But that would not be something that I would consider at all. You just keep this together and figure out the best way to build around that core, right? Your core is now LaVine and Vucevic, and you got to figure out how to maximize those two and get them playing the best off of each other. So maybe that means getting rid of some of the younger guys. We know that Lauri Markkanen is likely not going to come back to the Bulls. He almost got traded at the deadline. They didn't find a deal that worked out, and so he's going to be a restricted free agent this summer. Maybe there's a sign and trade they can pull off, or maybe they bring him back and attempt to trade him at the deadline. So there's a couple of options there, but I would be very surprised if Markkanen is on the Bulls by the end of next year. As well as Coby White, it's kind of like who knows how he fits next to LaVine. The fit has always sort of been questionable, and I know that Bulls fans are not in love with Coby White at the moment, because he has good moments occasionally, but there's too much where he just doesn't really play defense. It is a little inefficient and doesn't really pass the ball when he should. And so maybe he would be better suited somewhere else. So we'll just have to see if they end up moving away from guys like Markkanen and Coby White, and maybe parting with a couple of the other guys on this team, whether that's Satoransky or Ryan Arcidiacono or Thaddeus Young, even though he's been good for them this year. There are some moves to be made out there for this team, and I think they're going to be aggressive in the offseason in attempting to upgrade the roster. In what way, I have no idea. There's lots of options for them out there, but I think they're going to be looking for players that help them win now, and still keeping some of their younger guys around. Obviously, Patrick Williams is a guy they're hoping that he becomes a star. But other than that, I think there's a lot of guys who should be out on the table for potentially moves to be made, and they pretty clearly need to retool this roster here, just given that this hasn't worked out so far. I know it's a small sample size, but I think we knew that even when they made the Vucevic trade, that this team is not done, with their, I guess, rebuild or with their retooling. LaVine and Vucevic is a good core, but the rest of the roster is not, obviously on a championship standard, and so they're going to have to find a way to get another upgrade in there. So I guess moral of the story is, short term, the Bulls should still be trying to make the play-in game. Without LaVine, it's going to be tough, and there's two teams, like I said, that are nipping at their heels. I think the Wizards have actually a solid chance to pass them, considering that they've been playing sort of well recently and they've been healthy, and right now, obviously, LaVine being out, it gives them a good chance to catch up, and they're only one game back. So maybe the Wizards do end up taking over that spot, but I think the Bulls should still try to, these last 20 games or so, attempt to make the play-in tournament, do as well as you can for the rest of the year, and then in the offseason, reassess the roster, go into there with LaVine and Vucevic as your core, and everybody else should be up on the table. I guess, keep Patrick Williams, but everybody else is out there, see what you can do, and potentially make some upgrades, and we'll see if the Bulls can come back even better next year, because like I said, I do think this is a good core. I think the LaVine and Vucevic pairing, it works on paper. It hasn't really gelled in person yet, but I think you give it some time, I think they will, those two together, I think it'll work. So find some guys that fit around those two, and I think they'll be better. So I think that's about all I have on the Chicago Bulls. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about the Chicago Bulls. What should they do in the offseason? What should they do for the rest of the year? Attempt to make the playoffs or try to tank, and hopefully you jump into the top 4 because the Magic have your pick. But yeah, with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.